Bound by peace, feared for strength. An alien queen witnessed how a 27-year-old human turned the tid. The spaceship glided silently through the purple clouds of the alien capital planet. Ethan watched the lights of the sprawling city below, blinking in patterns he had never seen before. Towers rose like crystals into the sky, their surfaces reflecting the faint glow of two suns. Ships moved between them like small glowing insects, each one precise and careful. Ethan's heart beat fast, not from fear but from excitement. This was a place no human had ever walked freely before, yet here he was, a 27-year-old human, stepping into a world that seemed built for giants. He adjusted the strap of his bag and looked at the ship's doorway. Outside, the air shimmered, a mixture of gases that the aliens breathed and humans could not. He wore a special suit, a thin layer that let him move freely but kept him safe. As he stepped out, the city seemed alive. Sounds vibrated in a language he could not understand, but somehow he felt he could follow the rhythm. He smiled. Humans were not supposed to reach here, but humans had curiosity, and curiosity often led to surprises. The landing platform was vast, stretching hundreds of meters in every direction. Aliens of different shapes and sizes moved across it. Some had long arms with delicate fingers, some moved on multiple legs, and others floated slightly above the ground. Their eyes were large and sharp, and they glanced at Ethan with interest. They had seen few humans, and none had come here willingly. They expected fear or perhaps confusion, but Ethan only offered a small, polite nod. A figure approached him slowly. She moved with a calm confidence that demanded attention. Her skin glimmered faintly under the sun, a soft silver that seemed to shift as she walked. Her eyes were the color of the deep galaxy, vast and mysterious. This was Zyra, the alien queen. Though Ethan did not yet know her name, he could sense her importance immediately. Around her floated a few attendants, all watching him carefully, whispering among themselves in their soft, musical language. "Welcome, human," a voice said. It was clear and strong, but not harsh. Ethan tilted his head, listening carefully. The words were translated directly into his suit, but the tone carried meaning beyond simple translation. Respect, curiosity, challenge. "Thank you," Ethan replied. His voice was calm. "It is an honor to be here." The queen's gaze measured him. He did not bow deeply or act small. He stood straight, confident, but not arrogant. His calmness was unusual for a human, and for a moment the queen's eyes narrowed slightly, as if testing him. Most visitors trembled, stumbled, or tried to impress her with flattery. Ethan only smiled faintly and waited. "You are far from your home world," she said. "I am," Ethan answered. "But curiosity is stronger than fear." A small ripple of surprise passed through the attendants. Curiosity, that word was simple, but it carried weight. The queen looked at him again, this time longer. She seemed intrigued rather than annoyed. Most of her visitors came with fear or greed. Ethan had neither. He had something different. "Come," she said finally. "Walk with me." He followed her, careful not to step too quickly, but not to lag behind either. They moved through the city streets, which were not like any streets on Earth. The ground glowed faintly, lighting their path. Vehicles floated silently above the surface, carrying passengers who stared at Ethan with wide eyes. Children in small groups ran by, laughing sounds echoing like music, pointing at him, whispering. He smiled at them. On Earth, humans were known to be clever, but in this place, he realized cleverness would need to be shown in action, not just words. They entered a large building, its interior brighter than the outside sun. Transparent walls showed the sky beyond, and inside the space was vast and open. Aliens moved in patterns Ethan did not understand, yet some paused to glance at him. He felt their attention, their curiosity mingling with caution. "Your species is unusual," the queen said. "You are small, weak by our standards, yet you are not afraid." "I am not afraid of learning," Ethan said. "I believe there is value in seeing things as they are, not as we imagine them." The queen stopped and turned to face him. Her eyes searched his, trying to find something hidden. "You speak boldly for one so young. Most humans would hesitate or stumble in words. You speak as if you understand more than you should." "I try to understand," Ethan replied honestly. "Understanding comes before action. That is how humans survive." There was a pause. The queen's attendants whispered quietly, but she did not answer immediately. She seemed to study him as if he were a puzzle. He was small in size, not built like the aliens who relied on strength and speed. yet something in him radiated calm confidence. He did not need to prove himself by lifting, running, or fighting. His strength was in his mind and spirit. "You will attend our council," she finally said. "Observe, learn, and speak only if you are asked." "I will do my best," Ethan said, "and I will listen carefully." The queen inclined her head slightly and turned away. Ethan followed. The council chamber was enormous. It was a circle, its center empty, and the seats rose like steps around it. Aliens of many kinds sat there, their eyes focused on him as he entered. Some whispered. Some watched silently. He felt a small thrill. This was not a place for humans, yet here he was, standing in front of beings who had ruled planets for centuries. A council elder spoke first. His voice was deep, rumbling, full of authority. He questioned Ethan quickly, expecting fear, stammering, or weakness. Ethan listened carefully, answered clearly, and did not hesitate. He did not try to impress with false knowledge. He answered with honesty, using logic and insight. The council murmured among themselves. Some frowned. Others tilted their heads. Ethan noticed subtle gestures. They were impressed, though they would not say so openly. The queen watched silently from her throne, eyes narrowing slightly, intrigued by his ability to think calmly under pressure. When the questions ended, she spoke. "You think differently. You see patterns others miss. Yet your species is tiny. How do you survive?" "By noticing what others overlook," Ethan said. "By working together and trusting those who help. We are not strong alone, but together humans achieve more than expected." A small laugh passed through the room, soft but warm. The queen's attendants exchanged glances. This human, small and fragile in appearance, spoke with confidence that matched the largest alien leaders. He did not threaten. He did not beg. He only shared truth. "Curiosity," the queen murmured, almost to herself. "It may be more dangerous than strength." Ethan did not understand her words fully, but he sensed they were not a threat. Instead, they carried respect. He realized she was not testing him physically, but mentally and morally. She wanted to see if humans could think beyond fear and desire. He smiled faintly. The council ended and the queen led him back through the city. Children still pointed, and some adults whispered, but now the tone was different. It was interest, not scorn. He noticed how the city felt less like a place ruled by fear and more like a place of potential. Perhaps the queen had begun to see possibilities he had not yet imagined. At the end of the day, she paused at the edge of a plaza overlooking the glowing towers. "You will have challenges here," she said. "Not all will respect you. Some will fear what they cannot understand. But if you keep your mind clear and your intentions honest, you may influence more than you know." "I will try," Ethan said, "and I hope to learn as much as I can." She looked at him for a long moment. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. "We shall see." Ethan turned to look at the city one last time before heading back to his quarters. Lights shimmered on every surface, ships moved in careful paths, and the air hummed softly with energy. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated. Yet here he was, a single human, standing where few had dared, not with weapons, but with ideas, calm, and curiosity. As he settled in for the night, he thought about what tomorrow would bring. There would be challenges, meetings, and lessons he had not yet imagined. But he was ready. For the first time, he felt not just hope, but the quiet certainty that humans could leave a mark even in a galaxy that thought them weak. He could see it in the eyes of the alien queen. And perhaps, he thought with a small smile, that was the most important thing of all. The next morning, the alien capital was bathed in soft, golden light from the two suns. Ethan stepped out onto the balcony of his temporary quarters and looked over the city. The glow of the towers, the movement of the ships, and the hum of the air made everything feel alive. He had barely slept, not from fear, but from excitement and anticipation. Today, he would meet with the council again. Today, he would face the challenges that came with being the first human allowed to speak and advise in the court of the alien queen. Ethan descended the stairs to the council chamber, his steps careful but steady. The streets were already bustling, with aliens moving to their tasks. He noticed children playing with small floating orbs that glimmered in midair. Merchants carried glowing fruits, and inventors demonstrated small machines that moved with strange energy. The city was not only beautiful, it was smart. Every part seemed to serve a purpose, designed for efficiency and balance. When he entered the chamber, the council was already in session. The queen was present, sitting tall on her throne, eyes scanning the room with a mix of curiosity and authority. Around her, the leaders spoke quietly, but their tone carried urgency. Ethan felt the tension immediately. The city relied on resources that were running low, and the council debated how to solve the problem. The solution they sought could not be simple, and that made his task both delicate and critical. "Human," the Queen said, her voice calm but firm, "you observed our systems yesterday. What is your perspective?" Ethan stepped forward and nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he began. "I have noticed that your energy distribution relies heavily on one type of source. It is efficient, yes, but vulnerable. If a disruption occurs, much of the city could face shortages." The council murmured, some nodding, some frowning. They had considered other sources, but the methods were often risky or wasteful. Humans, they believed, were too weak to understand large-scale management, yet Ethan continued with quiet confidence. "I suggest a combination of methods," he said. "Smaller energy nodes can be distributed across the city. Each node would support nearby systems, and if one fails, the others continue without disruption. It may take careful planning and cooperation, but it will prevent shortages and improve efficiency." The council was silent. Few had expected such clarity. Some whispered to one another, questioning whether a human could truly think at this scale. Ethan noticed their doubt, but he did not hesitate. He had learned early in life that patience and calmness could overcome fear and mistrust. One elder spoke finally. "Your idea is interesting, human, but our current technology does not allow for such rapid implementation. We cannot risk failure." Ethan smiled faintly. "I understand, but sometimes the risk of inaction is greater than the risk of trying. With proper planning, testing, and delegation, success is possible, and even if it takes time, the system will be stronger in the end." The Queen leaned forward, her silver skin shimmering under the chamber lights. "You speak not only with intelligence, but with caution. That is rare. Most would speak boldly without thought. Others would hesitate without reason. You have balance." Ethan nodded. "Balance is important. Strength without understanding can cause mistakes, and caution without action can lead to failure. Both must exist together." For a long moment the room was silent. Then the Queen spoke again. "We will allow you to lead a small project to demonstrate your method. You will choose your team. Choose carefully, human. Their cooperation will determine success." Ethan's heart lifted slightly. This was more than he had hoped for. It was not simply advice. It was responsibility. He bowed slightly. "I will do my best, Your Majesty." The council agreed, and soon Ethan found himself in a large planning room with several alien engineers and administrators. Some were skeptical, their arms crossed, their eyes watching him carefully. Others seemed quietly curious, willing to listen. He began by introducing himself fully, not as a human who needed protection, but as a leader who wished to help. He started with simple steps. "First, we will map the current energy system," he said. "We need to understand the flow, the strengths, and the weaknesses. Then we will identify areas that can benefit from additional support nodes. Finally, we will create a test project in a small district before expanding to the entire city." Some nodded, some frowned, but all listened. Ethan did not rush, and he explained each step clearly in simple language so no one could misunderstand. He also asked questions, listened carefully, and noted suggestions from every member of the team. The aliens had knowledge and experience he did not yet understand, and he respected that. Over the next hours, Ethan and the team worked tirelessly. He noticed that when he treated the aliens as equals, they worked harder and with more creativity. When he simply told them what to do, their energy decreased. It was a small lesson, but an important one. Humans had long relied on cooperation, and he applied it naturally. By midday, a model of the district's energy network had been created. Ethan pointed to weak spots, areas vulnerable to disruption. "These nodes," he said, "are critical. If we support them with smaller nodes nearby, the system will never fail completely." Redundancy is not weakness, it is strength. An elder engineer, tall and blue-skinned with 4 arms, spoke. "You are not like other humans. You see patterns we missed. But can your idea work at full scale?" Ethan looked at him calmly. "That is why we test first. Success in a small area gives us confidence to expand. Failure teaches lessons for improvement. The humans have survived for thousands of years not because we were stronger, but because we learned quickly from both success and failure." The engineer nodded slowly, clearly impressed. Even the skeptics in the room were beginning to lean forward, paying attention to his every word. Ethan's quiet confidence, his respect for knowledge, and his focus on collaboration began to win them over. Hours passed quickly. Ethan did not stop to eat, yet he did not grow tired. His mind raced with ideas, improvements, and strategies. He spoke to the Queen's messenger often, updating her on progress. She came to observe, walking quietly behind the engineers, her eyes watching Ethan more than the project itself. She was fascinated by how a human, so small and delicate by her standards, could lead with such ease, focus, and understanding. When the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the city, the team finished the first phase. Ethan looked at the model and then at the team. "Well done," he said simply. "You worked together and that made all the difference." The room was silent for a moment, then the engineer with 4 arms smiled. "Human, your methods are unusual, but they work. We will follow your plan in the real district." Ethan smiled faintly. "Thank you. We all learn together. That is what makes success possible." The Queen watched from a distance, her eyes shining with quiet admiration. For centuries, she had ruled with strength, strategy, and authority, but she had never seen leadership like this. Not through fear, not through power, but through respect, intelligence, and collaboration. A human had turned the usual way of thinking on its head, showing that true strength was not in size or dominance, but in wisdom and unity. As night fell, Ethan returned to his quarters, tired but satisfied. The city lights glimmered below, more vibrant than ever. The air was filled with a sense of possibility. He thought about the day's events, the progress made, and the small victories won through clear thinking and cooperation. He knew tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be obstacles, skeptics, and perhaps unexpected difficulties. But he also knew that humans had a unique strength, the ability to adapt, to think creatively, and to inspire others. If he could bring that to the alien empire, even in small ways, it could make a difference far beyond what anyone expected. The Queen's voice echoed in his mind as he settled down. "We shall see." Yes, he thought, they would see. And they would understand that even a single human, with the right mind and heart, could change the course of things. The morning air on the alien capital planet was crisp, carrying a faint hum from the city's energy systems. Ethan walked through the streets, observing the floating vehicles and the glowing towers as he went. Today was not an ordinary day. The small district where he had begun his energy project was reporting unusual readings. Some nodes had gone offline unexpectedly, and while no one panicked, the situation required careful attention. This was the moment when his plans would be tested not just in theory, but in reality. He reached the district and was met by the lead engineer, a tall, green-skinned alien with long limbs that moved gracefully. "Human," the engineer said, "we have unexpected disruptions. The smaller nodes you installed show irregular output. We are unsure why." Ethan nodded, studying the holographic display showing the energy flows. Lines pulsed with faint flickers where the nodes had weakened. He took a deep breath. "Let's examine them carefully. A small disruption does not mean failure. It is a chance to learn. We will check each node, identify the cause, and adjust the system. Remember, systems improve through observation and adaptation." The team followed him, their skepticism tempered by the success of the previous day. Ethan moved methodically, testing each node, asking questions, and observing carefully. He did not rush, nor did he panic. His calmness had a strange effect on the team. They matched his pace and focus, thinking more clearly than before. After a few hours, Ethan identified the issue. A rare mineral in the local environment caused interference with the energy nodes. It was a subtle effect, unnoticed by the aliens because they had never faced this mineral before. Humans, he thought, often adapted to unexpected conditions, and observation was key. He explained the problem to the team. "We need to adjust the node settings," he said. "A small recalibration will allow them to work despite the mineral." "It is not a failure, only a step in the process." The engineer nodded slowly. "You approach problems differently. Most of us would have tried to replace the nodes entirely." Ethan smiled. "Replacing is sometimes necessary, but understanding the cause is wiser. Once we know the reason, the solution is stronger and more reliable." Together, they worked through each node. Ethan encouraged suggestions and listened carefully. One young alien assistant proposed an adjustment he had not considered, and Ethan praised her idea openly. "Excellent observation. Let's incorporate it," he said. The team's energy increased. Respect, he knew, inspired effort far better than orders or commands. By mid-afternoon, the nodes were stable. Ethan tested the system carefully, ensuring that the energy flowed smoothly through the district. The lights glimmered steadily, the machines moved without interruption, and the floating transport glided over streets without hesitation. The project, tested under real conditions, had succeeded. The Queen arrived quietly as Ethan concluded the work. She observed from a distance, her eyes reflecting both pride and curiosity. Unlike many leaders, she did not need to see destruction or failure to recognize skill. She saw strategy, calm thinking, and the ability to inspire others. Ethan noticed her gaze, but he did not let it distract him. He knew she was watching to understand not only the project's success, but his approach. "Human," she said finally, stepping forward, "you have handled the disruption with clarity and patience. Few in my empire would have observed so carefully before reacting." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Observation prevents mistakes." Adaptation strengthens results. Humans have survived because we notice, learn, and adjust. She inclined her head, a faint smile on her lips. "You do not act with force, yet you change outcomes. Strength is not only physical. You demonstrate something rare in my experience, intelligence and patience combined with courage." Ethan felt a small thrill. The Queen's praise was rare and meaningful, not because he desired recognition, but because she recognized the method behind his success. She understood that true influence was more than appearances, more than size or dominance. As the day continued, Ethan led discussions with the council. He suggested expanding the system gradually, using the lessons from the first district to improve other areas. Some council members questioned the pace, worried about the resources and the time required. Ethan responded calmly. "Slow and careful progress ensures success," he said. "Rushing leads to mistakes. If we take measured steps, everyone benefits. Efficiency comes not from haste, but from thought and collaboration." The council nodded, some reluctantly, some with genuine interest. Ethan noticed that their tone had changed. They were no longer merely skeptical, they were curious. They asked questions, offered suggestions, and engaged in discussions rather than arguing. The Queen's eyes followed him, watching the way he led without demanding respect, how he earned it naturally. After the meetings, Ethan returned to the test district. He walked among the residents, who looked at the functioning system with admiration. Children waved as he passed, fascinated by the human who had brought improvement without dominance or fear. Adults nodded politely, acknowledging the success of a species they had underestimated. Ethan smiled quietly. Small gestures, he thought, could inspire more than grand speeches. Late in the evening, he met privately with the Queen in her chambers. She moved silently, graceful and thoughtful. "Human," she said, "you have turned small steps into progress greater than I expected. I wonder what drives you to act so calmly, so wisely when others would panic." Ethan considered her question. "Humans survive through observation and learning. Panic causes mistakes. Calm allows us to see clearly, understand causes, and find solutions. Courage is not in rushing forward blindly, but in acting with thought and purpose." The Queen's eyes reflected interest, perhaps even a trace of admiration. "You do not rely on fear or force. And yet your influence is greater than many of my strongest generals. It is remarkable." Ethan smiled faintly. "Influence comes from trust and respect. When people understand that you value their ideas and abilities, they give their best. Strength is not only in size or power. It is in cooperation and understanding." The Queen nodded slowly. She had ruled with strength and strategy for centuries, yet this human had opened her mind to a different kind of power. Not a threat to her authority, but a new way to strengthen her empire without conflict. It was a perspective she had not considered. The night deepened and the city lights shimmered across the towers. Ethan walked back to his quarters, reflecting on the day's successes. The energy nodes worked. The council listened. The Queen observed. And he had done so without threat, without force, without fear. The human way of thinking had proven effective in ways that even the most experienced aliens could not ignore. As he looked at the stars from his window, Ethan thought about the future. There would be more challenges, more disruptions, and perhaps unforeseen difficulties. Yet he also knew that humans had a unique strength, the ability to adapt, learn, and inspire. He had shown the first step, and the results were already visible. In the quiet of the night, the Queen's words echoed in his mind. "You change outcomes without force. That is rare." Yes, he thought, rare but possible. And perhaps with patience, intelligence, and respect, even a small human could shape the future of an entire empire. Ethan finally rested, knowing that tomorrow would bring new opportunities, new challenges, and new lessons. But he was ready. He had shown that careful observation, collaboration, and thoughtful action could achieve what brute strength could not. And the alien empire, guided quietly by a human's insight, had already begun to see the value of his ways. The morning sun cast a warm glow over the alien capital. Ethan stepped out of his quarters, his mind focused on the day ahead. The energy project in the test district had succeeded, but the Queen had asked him to observe another problem: growing tensions between some alien factions. Even in a society as advanced as this, differences of opinion could create hesitation, slow progress, and mistrust. If these tensions were not managed carefully, they could undermine the progress Ethan and the Queen had begun to achieve. Ethan walked through the city, noticing small groups of aliens talking quietly in corners or walking together with cautious glances. The factions were not violent, but they were hesitant. Some believed they had more experience, some thought their methods were superior. Cooperation, Ethan knew, was the key. Humans had long survived by building trust and finding common ground, even among those who disagreed. The Queen appeared beside him silently. She moved like a shadow, graceful and calm. "The factions are hesitant," she said. "They fear change and the influence of one human. They doubt your abilities and ours. How will you address this?" Ethan looked at her calmly. "Fear is natural. We cannot remove it, but we can turn it into understanding. If each faction sees that their ideas are valued and that we all work toward the same goal, fear will decrease. Trust will grow." She studied him closely, her galaxy-colored eyes reflecting curiosity. "You speak as if it is simple, but these aliens have lived for centuries with their traditions. They are proud. They may resist even respect." "That is why we listen first," Ethan said. "Then we demonstrate that their strengths matter. When they see that cooperation benefits everyone, they will join willingly. No one respects control imposed from above. They respect recognition and contribution." Together, they walked to a large council room where representatives of the factions waited. Some had raised eyebrows, some frowned, and others looked skeptical. Ethan stepped forward confidently, bowing slightly as he greeted them. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said. "I understand your concerns. We are here because we share the same goal: the well-being of our city, our people, and our future. Your knowledge, experience, and ideas are valuable. Let us work together to find solutions that benefit everyone." The room was quiet. Some murmured among themselves. No one spoke immediately, but Ethan did not rush. He let the silence work for him. People he had learned often responded best when they had time to consider ideas. A tall, blue-skinned alien spoke finally. "Human, you are small and your species is weak by appearance. Why should we follow your ideas?" Ethan smiled gently. "I do not ask you to follow me blindly. I ask only that you share your ideas and together we find the best solution. Strength is not measured by size. It is measured by understanding, collaboration, and results. Together, we are stronger than any one person or faction alone." The room remained quiet, but a few heads nodded subtly. One by one, representatives began to speak, sharing small ideas about how to improve resource management and city planning. Ethan listened carefully, asked questions, and repeated key points to show understanding. He did not criticize, and he never dismissed suggestions. Instead, he highlighted the value in each idea, connecting them into a larger plan. Hours passed as the discussion continued. Slowly, the factions began to work together, guided by Ethan's calm, patient approach. He encouraged compromise not by force, but by pointing out mutual benefits. When two representatives disagreed, he asked questions that helped them see common ground. Each time, he praised insight, not authority. By afternoon, a framework for collaboration had begun to take shape. The Queen watched quietly from her throne, impressed by how a human had turned cautious suspicion into active cooperation. For centuries, her empire had relied on strength, rules, and hierarchy. Now she saw the power of trust, respect, and patience. It was a new kind of influence, one that did not threaten her authority but strengthened it. Ethan took a deep breath. "This is only the first step," he said. "We have begun to listen to each other. Tomorrow we will test these ideas in small projects. When we see that working together brings results, cooperation will grow naturally. We build trust through actions, not words alone." One elder, a long-limbed alien with silver eyes, spoke. Your methods are unusual, human. We are not used to such patience. Yet we see progress. Perhaps we underestimated your kind. Ethan smiled. Humans often succeed in ways others do not expect. We value observation, learning, and adaptation. Together, we can achieve more than any one group alone. The room fell silent, but this time it was not doubt, it was thought. Representatives were considering how cooperation could help them, how unity could create results greater than competition. Ethan observed carefully, noting which ideas gained support and which required more explanation. As the day ended, the Queen spoke privately to him. You have done more than I expected. Where others would insist, you listen. Where others would control, you guide. That is rare. Ethan nodded. It is not force that leads to success, Your Majesty, but understanding. Influence grows when people feel valued, not when they feel pressured. Humans know this, and it works even here. She studied him for a moment, then inclined her head. You have a gift, human, not of strength, but of insight. Perhaps this is what my empire needed more than power. Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. The Queen's acknowledgement was meaningful, but more importantly, the factions were beginning to work together. Small steps, careful listening, and patient guidance had turned hesitation into participation. Trust was growing, slowly but surely. That evening, Ethan returned to his quarters. He reflected on the day's events, noting lessons learned. Fear, he realized, could not be eliminated, but it could be transformed. Skepticism could become curiosity. Doubt could become cooperation. The alien factions had taken their first step toward unity, guided not by orders, but by example. From his window, he watched the city lights glow in the night. Ships glided silently above the streets, and the energy nodes in the districts pulsed steadily, a symbol of progress. The people below moved with a subtle confidence, no longer just following instructions, but participating in a shared vision. Ethan smiled quietly. This was the way humans worked, and it was proving effective even here, in a society vastly older and larger than his own. As he settled for the night, he thought of the future. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but he was ready. He had seen how patience, careful listening, and respect could unite even those who seemed divided. He had begun to show that humans could influence not through force, but through thought, collaboration, and trust. The Queen's words echoed in his mind once more. You guide without demanding. You influence without force. That is rare. Yes, he thought, rare but powerful. And perhaps, with steady guidance, even a small human could turn hesitation into cooperation and change the future of an entire empire. The alien capital shone in the soft light of the twin suns. Ethan walked through the streets, observing the city he had helped guide toward cooperation and progress. What had once been divided into cautious factions was now beginning to work as a unified whole. The energy systems were stable, the districts functioned smoothly, and the citizens moved with a quiet confidence. Even the skeptics had begun to smile, seeing that collaboration could bring results beyond what they had imagined. He arrived at the council chamber, where representatives of all factions were gathered. Today was not a test of technology, but of diplomacy, trust, and leadership. Ethan had been asked to mediate a discussion about the next phase of expansion for the city and to help ensure that all voices were heard equally. He stepped forward with calm confidence, his eyes meeting those of each representative in turn. Thank you all for coming, he began. We have made great progress together. We have learned that when we listen, when we respect one another, and when we act carefully, results are stronger than any one person could achieve alone. Today we discuss how to build on that progress so that our city and our empire can thrive even more. The council listened quietly. Some representatives still held slight skepticism, but the atmosphere had changed. Now they were curious, interested in what a human could propose. Ethan smiled faintly. He had learned that patience, clarity, and respect could turn doubt into attention, and attention into cooperation. He continued, we will expand the energy network to new districts. Each district will have teams working together, combining knowledge from different factions. We will share ideas, test carefully, and learn from one another. Everyone's input is valuable. No single group is more important than the others because strength comes from unity, not dominance. A tall alien with golden eyes leaned forward. And if mistakes occur, he asked, we have seen that your system is careful, but no system is perfect. Ethan nodded. Mistakes will happen. That is part of learning. What matters is how we respond. If we observe carefully, adjust quickly, and work together, mistakes become lessons. Lessons build strength. The representatives whispered among themselves, considering his words. Slowly, nods spread through the room. One by one, each faction acknowledged that cooperation was the way forward. Ethan had turned caution into confidence, skepticism into curiosity, and doubt into trust. The queen observed quietly from her throne. Her gaze followed Ethan as he guided the discussion, not with force or authority, but with calm reasoning, respect, and insight. She had ruled her empire for centuries, yet she had never seen influence so gentle, yet so powerful. A single human had changed the way her council thought, simply by demonstrating patience, intelligence, and trust. After the meeting, the queen approached Ethan privately. "Human, what you have accomplished here is remarkable. You have turned hesitation into cooperation, doubt into confidence, and division into unity. Few leaders in my empire could do what you have done without commanding or threatening." Ethan bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what humans have learned over centuries. We survive not by strength alone, but by listening, observing, learning, and working together. It is the same principle that can guide your empire to even greater success." She looked at him thoughtfully. "Your perspective is unusual but effective. Perhaps it is what my empire needed most. Strength is not only in force or technology, but in understanding and collaboration. You have reminded me of that." Ethan smiled faintly. "That is all any of us can do. Remind others of what they already know and show them how it can work." Over the following weeks, Ethan continued to guide the council and the factions. Each new district that implemented his collaborative methods saw improvements. Energy systems became more efficient, production increased, and citizens began to take pride in the results of teamwork. Disagreements still occurred, but now they were approached with discussion and compromise rather than suspicion or hesitation. Trust had taken root, and it grew stronger every day. Ethan's influence spread quietly. He was not a ruler, not a general, not a commander. He was an observer, a guide, and a teacher. And yet, through these roles, he changed the course of an entire empire. Citizens began to look at humans differently. No longer were they seen as small, weak, or insignificant. Instead, humans were respected for their intelligence, adaptability, and ability to inspire collaboration. One evening, Ethan walked through the city with the queen. The streets were alive with movement. The glow of lights reflected in the windows of buildings, and the energy nodes pulsed steadily. Children played freely, laughing as floating orbs followed them through the air. Adults moved with a sense of purpose, confident in their work and in the cooperation that guided it. "You have done more than I imagined, human," the queen said. "You have reminded me that strength is not always physical. It is patience, understanding, and the ability to guide others to see the same vision. You have changed my empire without raising a hand, without fear, without threat." Ethan looked at the city below, the result of their combined efforts. "That is the true power of any civilization, Your Majesty, the strength to work together, to listen, to learn, and to adapt. Humans have long relied on it, and it works here as well." The queen nodded slowly. "Perhaps we underestimated your species. You have proven that even one human with intelligence and patience can influence an entire empire." Ethan smiled quietly. "We often succeed not by dominating, but by observing, understanding, and guiding. That is the human way." For the first time, the queen allowed a small smile to appear. She had ruled with strategy and authority for centuries, yet she recognized that something more subtle, yet more enduring, had taken root. A human had shown her the value of collaboration, the power of patience, and the importance of trust. In the weeks that followed, the empire continued to thrive. Energy systems expanded efficiently, resources were managed wisely, and factions worked together with unprecedented unity. Ethan's methods had become standard practice, not because of orders, but because they worked. His approach inspired confidence, creativity, and a willingness to cooperate that the empire had never known. Citizens began to speak openly about the human who had guided them, telling stories of a small, unassuming figure who changed the way they thought and worked. The queen, once wary of humans, now valued their perspective as a vital source of wisdom. And through it all, Ethan remained humble, focused on learning, observing, and guiding, not seeking recognition, but quietly leaving a lasting impact. One evening, as the twin suns set, Casting golden light across the city, Ethan stood beside the queen once more. They looked down at the bustling streets below, the glowing energy nodes, and the citizens working together with confidence and purpose. "You have left a legacy, human," the queen said. "Not of power or fear, but of understanding, respect, and cooperation. Your influence will be felt for generations." Ethan shook his head slightly. "I only showed what humans have always known. Observation, patience, and collaboration can change outcomes. You saw it, the citizens saw it, and together we made it real." The queen looked at him with admiration. "Perhaps this is the true meaning of strength, not in power, but in the ability to guide, inspire, and unite. You have shown me that even the smallest being can shape the future." Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. The empire was no longer divided. Trust had grown. Cooperation had taken root. And humans, once underestimated, were now respected for their unique strength. As night fell, the city shimmered with lights, energy pulsed smoothly, and citizens moved with purpose and confidence. Ethan walked back to his quarters, reflecting on the journey. The path had not been easy, but patience, calm reasoning, and respect had brought change without conflict. A human had influenced an entire empire, not through dominance or fear, but through insight, cooperation, and understanding. Looking out at the stars from his window, Ethan felt a quiet satisfaction. He knew there would be more challenges ahead, but he also knew that humans had a unique strength that would serve them well anywhere, even among the most advanced civilizations. Curiosity, patience, intelligence, and respect were tools more powerful than brute strength, and today he had proven it. The queen's words echoed once more. "Even one human can shape the future." Ethan smiled. Yes, one human could indeed turn hesitation into confidence, division into unity, and doubt into trust. And in doing so, leave a legacy that would inspire the empire for generations to come.